Welcome to the Scottish Family Party's campaign launch for the 2022 council elections. My name is Jonathan Richardson. I am the SFP candidate here in my ward, that is Ward East Kilbride South. This will be the first time that the Scottish Family Party has stood in the council elections. And so because of that, we've had a look again at our own policies and principles, and just to see how those policies and principles translate into the local context. We've had to be creative and explore different ways in which we are to run a different campaign to what we've ran previously. So just over the next few minutes, we would like to tell you what the Scottish Family Party has to say on the local issues. What will this campaign look like? What will it look like? And to do that for us, I would like to introduce you to our party leader, Richard Lucas.
Well, thanks very much, Jonathan. Now, Jonathan was saying a local election is something new for us. So we've been thinking it through how our policies are going to apply. We've come out with two areas basically to focus on. And the first one is that we believe the local politics should be about local people and local priorities. Because as we've looked into it, we've seen area after area when it seems like the actions of councils are often driven by something else apart from what local people actually want. So one way we could put it, we're more interested in what Mrs. Mackay at number 29 thinks, rather than what a national political party thinks, or rather what some campaigners think, or what the United Nations recommends that you should do. And I mean, one of the classic examples of that has been what happened during the lockdowns and the coronavirus pandemic, where a lot of councils went erecting bollards and installing a tangle of cycle lanes and spaces for people and all sorts of things, which was completely out of touch with what local people wanted. That wasn't local people's priority at all during the pandemic. And yet lots of councils made that their priority, which really illustrated the gulf between what local people want and what councils were often doing. So I think that's very much our priority, to listen to what local people want and to have their priorities as our priorities. I mean, another example of that was councils who often got all sorts of grand schemes, but they can't get the basics right. They can't collect bins often enough, for example. And these are the core services that a council should be offering. So we want to get back to basics as well as councils. Now, also, probably in the area we live, you can think about repairs that just take an inordinate amount of time. Now, I'm sure those things could often be completed a lot more quickly. I know these things are not necessarily simple, but there seems to be a degree of complacency in all councils, it seems, in terms of accepting slow, sloppy work instead of really being urgent, getting things done and having the infrastructure in place and spick and span. I mean, town centres is another area. I think a lot of parts of Scotland, people are getting embarrassed by their town centres, by their city centres. They're places that used to be thriving, quite smart, attractive. If you had a visitor come, you'd take them to the town centre, to the city centre, and you'd want to say, this is where I live. Whereas now it's more likely that people might be thinking, I'd rather not take people there. It's really scruffy, it's a bit run down. So again, that's the sort of thing that I think local people find a priority. So that's what we want to make a priority as well. Another area with local councils, as with the government, at a council level as well, is very highly politicized. Now, you may think, of course, local politics is going to be politicized. It is a form of politics. That's quite right. But often local councils don't realize where the limits of political activity should be. So, for example, when you go to the local museum or the art gallery, do you find political messages there? You often do, which is a waste of money, and it's also wrong. Also, what's going on in schools? Are schools being used to promote political messages or the agenda of certain activists with the approval of the council? Well, yes, they are. Is the council funding organizations that are basically political campaigning groups? In many, many cases, yes. Now, this is wrong. It's undemocratic, but it's also a waste of money. So that's also an area where we would make drastic changes and we would challenge councils on those issues very strongly. So that's the first of our areas, is local issues. And the second thing is education. Education is one of our major focuses as the Scottish Family Party. And local councils have a lot of influence over education. Now, every local council, every school has got a big challenge in providing good education for children in that area. And the challenge is that the Scottish Government has got terrible education policies that really work against the teachers and the schools who want to provide good education for local people. So they've got a real challenge, but councils have got power. Now, we're going to play our party election broadcast a bit later, so I won't repeat things that you're going to hear in that. But I would say that local councils can make a difference. For example, Western Isles Local Council decided to completely reject the Scottish Government's rshp.scot sex education resources. They just took a vote and said, we're not using them. So Scottish Family Party councillors would be urging the council to basically do the same as Western Isles, and also, for example, the transgender guidance that says schools should keep secrets from parents where a pupil changes gender at school. So we believe the council should just say, well, thanks for your guidance, government, but we're not going to follow that in our council area. Similarly with discipline, where Education Scotland, the government are pushing, you shouldn't have punishments. It all should be counselling sessions. That's the way to get pupils to behave. There's no need for punishments. Then I think a local council could say again, thanks for your advice, Education Scotland, Scottish Government, but actually we're not going to follow that. We're going to have a more balanced approach in our schools. So local councils could have an influence, and they really could improve local education by implementing policies at odds with the Scottish Government's policies, which are undermining education. So there are two main focuses. First one, genuinely listening to local people's priorities, and the other one is improving education. Now that's our take on the local issues. I'm now going to hand over to our Deputy Leader, Phil Holden, to talk about some of our more fundamental principles.
Hi. So in 2019, the total fertility rate in Scotland was 1.37. And I was thinking it would be interesting to look back in history and see what the population of Scotland would be today if we put that fertility rate back into the past. So Richard, if you'd bring up the diagram. And so this is what would happen if we had that total fertility rate in 1707. You could see it would be pretty disastrous for Scotland. So the word generate, if we look at it in terms of its meaning, it comes from the word genero, which means to procreate, to produce, or from genus, which means kind or family. And so from this, we could infer that degenerate, where de means to move away from, it means to move away from family, to move away from things which can reproduce. If you've been watching the news, you'll have seen what's happening in Ukraine. And tragically, 1,276 verified civilian deaths have taken place. But when we look at Scotland, when we look at the statistics for abortion, we see that in our health board regions, in Grampian, there were 1,358 human lives taken through abortion. In Lanarkshire, that was 1,678. In Greater Glasgow and Clyde, 3,473. Tayside, 1,186. In Lothian, 2,735. We're literally killing 30% of Scotland's children, 1 in 3 being taken. And so the Scottish Family Party believes that for the 99% of these pregnancies which were not the result of rape, or where the mother's life was not in danger, that abortion should not be provided. In this generation, the people running our institutions are fighting the very process that brought them life. Politicians who claim to defend women's rights are at the same time unable to define what a woman is. A council-run school boldly encourages all its boys to put on skirts and dress up as girls. Under the proposed laws, anyone encouraging society in the direction of committed lifelong relationships capable of reproduction will be considered guilty of conversion therapy and torture. The Scottish Family Party believes the best future for Scotland is one where as many children as possible are raised by their mum and dad in loving and caring marriages. We're a pro-marriage party. We believe a lifelong committed relationship provides the best possible launchpad for Scotland's next generation. We are also a pro-freedom and pro-free speech party. Today, you see 80 candidates standing up for what they believe in. In many cases, these candidates are standing simply to give you the opportunity to vote and stand for what you believe in. You see all the other parties and all the other candidates, standing often for pretty much the same thing. We encourage you to stand up and vote for what you believe in.
Right, thank you very much, Phil. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit now about our campaign. 83 candidates is our grand total, which we are absolutely delighted with. There have been people coming forward from all directions, willing to stand up for what they believe in and to represent the Scottish Family Party. Now, sometimes that's quite a serious decision for people, because in the society we live in, some of our views are very unpopular and you're going to face hostility and opposition from various directions. But that's 83 people who've been willing to brave that and to take a stand in their local area, which is fantastic. So we've got people all over Scotland campaigning, delivering leaflets that we've produced for candidates, knocking on doors, giving out leaflets in the street, all sorts of activities. If you'd like to help your local candidates, do get in touch with us. We can put you on the right track. The more, the merrier. And candidates are reporting a warm reception around Scotland. By warm, I mean an approving, appreciative reception. There's always going to be some people who give us a warm reception in the other sense as well. They might get a bit angry and hostile, but that's a very small minority. Normally, people are interested to hear what we're going to say. They're intrigued by what, for many people, is a new party, and they find our message appealing. That's something they're very interested in. This afternoon, I'm heading down to Ayr with another couple of people to join the team there, and we're going to be campaigning in the High Street and some other areas around Ayr. So we've got our candidates working away, boots on the ground, if you like, but also we're going to be running a national campaign as well, partly to encourage people to vote for us, but it will also help to raise awareness of the Scottish Family Party. And a key part of that is our party election broadcast, which will be shown on BBC and STV. And we'll show it on social media as well. So this morning, you're going to see the premiere of our party election broadcast, which is made by a party member, Gary Downey, and it is absolutely excellent. We're very, very pleased with it. So you can watch that now and imagine, you've perhaps never heard of the Scottish Family Party before, and this appears on the television or appears on your social media, and hopefully you'll think, yeah, that's going to make a really good impression, and it's going to draw people towards us. So here we go with the premiere of our party election broadcast.
The Scottish Family Party. We are a growing party that is founded on solid principles. And when you vote for us in the local elections on the 5th of May, you're declaring that you share those principles. As the Scottish Family Party, our focus is on the needs of local people. Council services are vital, and maintaining these services at the highest possible standards is a priority. Our cities and town centres should be clean and welcoming so that businesses can thrive and residents can enjoy a sense of pride in their community spaces. And services like bin collections need to be adequate. The days of COVID-19 as a universal excuse for poor or non-existent services must be over. You can probably think of features in your area that have fallen into disrepair, and you've waited and waited for action to be taken. We will challenge council complacency that appears to accept delays measured in years for jobs that really should be measured in weeks. An adequate housing stock is vital, so we would encourage new homes on sites where they enhance and invigorate the locality rather than despoil the environment. Councils provide many services of the highest importance, and so we would slim down council administrations to maximise the funding available for these important services. With such a responsible approach, we'd hope to avoid council tax increases. We need good schools for our children. Every council in Scotland has a real challenge with this goal, because the Scottish Government has terrible education policies that are undermining the good work of every school in Scotland. Councils can really influence and improve local schools. Insisting on hard work and excellent behaviour is a good place to start. And supporting head teachers as they deal with difficult pupils. We would reject the government's sex education lesson plans that endorse controversial sexual practices, replacing them with more age-appropriate materials with a positive message about committed relationships. We would also stop intrusive government questionnaires into children's private and family lives. We would refuse to implement the government's guidance that schools teach children that they can choose their own gender, and we would not allow schools to keep a child's gender change a secret from their parents. As the Scottish Family Party, we stand up for families, and we promote stable relationships by encouraging marriage. The bigger parties are all pro-abortion. We are a pro-life party, defending the rights of the unborn and opposing assisted suicide legislation also. In Scotland, many people are afraid to say what they really think, and we want to restore genuine freedom of speech for those who think differently from the government. If these are causes close to your heart, you can show that by making the Scottish Family Party candidate your first choice on the 5th of May. Please remember, in this election, if your first choice candidate doesn't gain as many votes as other candidates, your vote will usually transfer to your second choice. So if you share our values, we urge you to stand up for what you believe in and vote for the Scottish Family Party candidate.
There we are. Well, we're very pleased with that, and I'm sure you'll agree that that's a very professional and appealing production. Now, with the party election broadcast that we showed on television, we also want to show it to as many people as possible, and one of the ways we're doing that will be through social media. So alongside our candidates campaigning locally, we'll also run a social media advertising campaign. And we'll be launching a crowdfunder just within the next day or two, which will enable you to contribute to that. If we can raise a good few £1,000s, then we can spend that very effectively on social media advertising. And again, that will enable us to reach tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people with that party election broadcast. Just to reiterate the point at the end there made in the party election broadcast, the council election voting system, it's pretty complicated. I wouldn't even begin to try and explain it. Not because I think you wouldn't understand, it would take a long time. So it's quite complicated. But the basic message we want to get over is it's designed to remove the need for tactical voting. So you don't need to think, oh, if I vote for them, maybe they won't get in, maybe that will be a wasted vote, maybe it would have been better voting for them. The system is designed so that there are not wasted votes. So we would encourage people just to make the Scottish Family Party your first choice in the election. Forget about tactical voting. That doesn't apply in the Scottish local council elections. Just vote for what you believe in. Order the parties in your order of preference, and then the system takes care of the rest. Now, this is our little campaign launch here. We are having another online event called Meet the Candidates, where maybe a dozen of our candidates will appear on screen and just have a brief interview. That's going to be on the 12th of April at 9 p.m. in our usual live stream slot. Michael Willis, our chairman, and Don Marshall, our deputy chairman, are going to be running that. So do tune into that, and there'll be opportunities to ask questions there as well. We're having these 2 online events. Also, just after the election, we're having a rally in Edinburgh on the morning of the 7th of May, to which everyone is welcome. That's free and unticketed, but keep your eye on social media for that. Right, so just to have the last word, I'm now going to hand us back to Jonathan Richardson. Jonathan.
Thank you, Richard and Phil, for that. Just for the remainder of our launch campaign here, I would just like to share a wee bit about being a local candidate and how I got involved in the Scottish Family Party. So I got involved in it through listening to Richard Lucas live. He was invited to my church and he came along and spoke in front of quite a few people. I was motivated, inspired by what he had to say, among others. I was just very thankful to see a party standing up for the values that you've just heard about there. Very thankful, and that led me on to the privilege to be able to stand as a local candidate in my own ward. I've lived in this ward for I've lived in East Kilbride, I should say, for my entire life, 20 years of my life, and so I care for the ward, and I know many of the people in the ward, and so my campaigning's been going really well. You might be able to see behind me. This is a wee map of my ward, which I've just been filling out as I've went along, as I've handed out the leaflets. I've just been filling out that map. I've had some really good conversations as well with people, very insightful conversations. That has gone well. This is my leaflet here, and so as you can see, there's different policies on that leaflet. The ones that has really stood out to people, obviously people love to see about conserving the environment. That's very important, conserving the environment. Opening a new primary school is very necessary in my ward as well, due to the growing population of children in my ward, which is great. But the ones that I've found I've been challenged on mostly is standing up for families, improving education, helping children's mental health, and pro-life. Finally, these are the stuff that I've been challenged on the most as a local candidate from other people in my ward. How do I help out children's mental health? Well, of course, that's linked with improving education that has been given to our children. It's quite shocking, the government's recommendation to children of what they should be taught, and so I'm certainly looking to affect change there. But there's many clubs that used to happen as well in my area, in my ward, that have all been stopped by the restrictions. Community centres have been closed down for ages and ages, and so I'm really looking to get these community centres back up and running, and so get these children's clubs back up and running as well. This is really, really important. I was a part of a children's club before as well, but many of these have just stopped. The family is just fundamental to our society, really foundational. And the moment we see the family fall apart and family unit disintegrate, then we'll see, as we've seen, our society fall apart in different ways as well. And so it's really important that we support and we stand up for families the best way we can. And that's of great interest to people in my ward because there are many families, as I say, many children. That's the reason why we need to open this new primary school as well. So we've had to do this online launch campaign, had to do it online because of many of our candidates and activists who are away out around the country, especially now because it's on a Saturday, away out around the country campaigning in different ways. We've had to do this online. However, as you heard from Richard Lucas, we will be having a rally in Edinburgh. That will be on the 7th of May, just after the local election has been taking place on the 5th of May. There'll be a rally in Edinburgh on a Saturday morning. It is free and unticketed, so you're more than welcome to come along to that. You can see more details on the website of the Scottish Family Party. This event will also include the launch of our innovative wedding box policy. So please feel free to join us for that as well. And if there's any questions that you've had that you've maybe come into your mind as we've spoken or just in general, then we're not going to be answering any questions on this live feed today. But please feel free to pose your questions to the Meet the Candidates event, as you've heard, that we're going to be having on the 12th of April at 9 p.m, not 9 a.m, 9 p.m. Important difference. And that will be on the Scottish Family Party social media or on any Tuesday evening live stream. It will be on a Tuesday night. So please feel free to pose your questions then. Finally, vote for what you believe in. SFP candidate, first choice.